This is Kids, Chaos, and Coffee. I am WCNC Charlotte's Lisa Washington, joined by our Assistant News Director, Spencer Collins, and our Executive Producer, Nikki Vaima. Ladies, let's talk about mental health, because we all have mental health to some degree. And as moms, we know there are things that we must do to try to be as healthy as possible for ourselves and also for our children. But if we're being honest, sometimes we're not okay, and sometimes things get really tough. What do you do to try to maintain good mental health?
That's a great question. I think I'm trying to figure it out because I definitely feel like I am in a downward spot right now.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of it, I've had a cough for about 4 weeks now.
Okay.
And it's just really wearing me out. I'm told a lot of people, I feel like, have been like, oh my gosh, I have this cough too. Someone told me they were like, they had it for 2 months. Someone on Friday were like, yep, I'm in about week 6 of it. So
Yes.
I'm like, I'm only a month in. Like, I have to deal with this for another month. And I feel like I am struggling in so many aspects, but I think it all boils down to that.
You think it's the cough?
Yes, because it's just making me tired.
Okay.
And
Makes
now
everything just a little bit harder.
Yes, and now my body is hurting me from my ribs and
Because
my
it's
back
been
from
I've actually
coughing.
noticed you in the newsroom coughing, and I'm like, is she okay?
I know, and that's
I have noticed that.
It literally is only a cough, and now I'm a little bit stuffy, but I'm not sick, so I feel like I need to still go out and do all the things because I'm not sick. But then sometimes I'm like,
I remember a friend said to me, and I do find it to be true, that sometimes we are so mentally exhausted that it makes you physically tired.
Yeah.
I say that all the time. I'm like,
It really does.
I'm not tired, sleepy. I'm fatigued. I am just my whole body is just bleh. And it's different. I don't need
Very different.
10 hours of sleep. I need a full lobotomy. Just somebody to wipe me out because I'm so exhausted. And then it lasts a few days. But it makes you really tired.
I say to my kids sometimes, Mommy just needs time to think. And they're like, what? I'm like, no, I just need the space and time to just
Did your parents
think.
ever be like, or your mom specifically, ever go, I remember this so vividly, she'd be like, I just need to go lie down. I was like, take a nap? And she's like, no.
No,
just lie down.
Yes.
Lie down.
Yes.
And now, as a kid, I was like, why? That sounds so boring. Why would you do that? And now as an adult, I'm like, God, I would kill for 15 minutes just
Oh my
to lie
gosh,
down.
you need
Yes.
that
Yeah,
that
yeah,
time,
yeah.
to, especially with kids when they were out of school, just pulling into the garage. I just have to sit there for a few minutes before I go
We'll fight
in
in the
because I
car.
can't. I need that transition to clear my mind, settle, and then go in.
I've noticed the thing that wears on my mental health the most is when I devote too much to one thing. And it's really hard because we were just talking about this at home, trying to find that balance because my husband and I have talked about when Ev was homesick for a week and we didn't get anything done. We didn't do anything.
Okay.
I felt terrible because I was like, I kept this kid alive, but I wasn't good at my job this week. I wasn't a good wife this week. I didn't do anything well. I just laid on the couch with the kid. Vice versa, if all I'm doing is work stuff and I'm not paying attention. So it's finding that balance of I'm getting things done at home, I'm getting things done at work, I'm also doing a good job with Ev, and that's when I'm at my most mentally healthy, but it's a constant push to be aware of those things, and that's hard.
Yeah, and I've seen that they talk about oh, women can't have all the things, and I've seen the meme of no, we can have all the things, but it's hard to have all the things and do them well at the same time.
At the same time is the thing. Yes. And we want to, the things that we do, we want to do them well. At least I do. You say you don't want to do anything mediocre, but it's all right, how much time am I going to devote to this? Or, what do you compartmentalize so that you can get something else done? And I think that's where the drain, because we all, at least for me, I feel like I have so many tabs open all the time, right? So there's the work tab, there are kids, there's always these tabs, and then you forget about one, and I'm like, oh, shoot, that too.
And it depends on the week, because some weeks I'm like, give me anything. I'm a knock out the park.
Yeah.
I can do it all. Give me a doctor's appointment, give me a big work project, give me a house to clean, I'll knock it out. And then some weeks we call, this is really lame, but this is what we've done at home, is we say some weeks you're the gardener and some weeks you're the flower. And so sometimes I tell my husband, I need to be flower this week. I need you to pick up the slack.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be my best this week. And then sometimes it's the opposite. If he's having a really hard time at work, I'm like, I'll garden. I'll take care of everything.
Right.
I can bear the load, the mental load, physical load, whatever it is. And some weeks I'm like, yeah, I gotta focus on me this week. Like, that's just what I have going for me right now.
You have to.
And it's okay to have those weeks.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I always use the metaphor, like, sometimes I'm surfing, I'm on top of the wave, I'm killing it, I'm doing awesome. Sometimes my only goal is to just not go underwater. And sometimes I say that, like, this week my goal is just to not get taken over by a wave, and that's okay. And just, like, being okay with that.
For sure, for
But
sure.
It's easier said than done.
People talk about being on the struggle bus. I often joke, but it's actually kind of true. I say I'm always on the struggle bus. Sometimes I'm driving, sometimes I'm a passenger.
Sure.
You just never know, but I'm always somewhere on that bus. And, you know, I joke about it, but you're right. There are times when you're like, this week, I just want to make it through the week. I just want to get everything done.
And not feeling guilty about it is the
Yes.
hardest.
Yes,
That is
yes.
true.
Because I can recognize that I need it, but it's harder to be okay with it.
Yeah.
And, like, not feel like a failure that I didn't do something.
Yeah, and I
For
think that's
sure.
what I struggle with the most too. It's just like the guilt that I put on myself.
Yes.
Like, no one else is like doing
No.
that. Benton's not like, you didn't pick me up today.
Yeah, right, yeah,
Like,
right.
you didn't do the thing. My husband is not like, you're being a
Yes.
terrible. Like, no one is saying
In fact,
that
sometimes
to
it's
me.
the opposite. I get in trouble for not asking for help and then getting stressed out, and Michael will be like, then you should have asked me. And I'll be like, I didn't want to. I wanted to be a hero and do it
Yeah.
all myself.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes
he's
it's so
and now we're all
hard.
suffering
It is
because
so
I tried to
hard.
be a hero. I'm like, I know.
yeah.
Asking for help, for at least for me, can be very hard. And
So
I think
hard,
for all
so
of us,
hard.
because you put these these expectations on yourself that really can be unrealistic sometimes, and you don't want to go, hey, can you help me?
it makes you
Especially
feel
when
less
it's outside of your
capable.
home, right?
Yes.
Like, I don't want to walk into work like, hey, I need some help.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you don't
But
want to
sometimes
be seen
that's
as not
okay.
capable.
Exactly.
You want to be like, I can do it all, and then when you do it all, you're like, well, this sucks too. It's like, what's the balance?
It is
There's no winning.
indeed. And then we have these, the concern for your kids is one thing, because I feel like, and I think you'll agree, once you have a child, you can never 100% focus on just one thing, because somewhere in the back of your mind, there's like, I got to get food, I got to get diapers, I check this list. For now, it's school list. What do we need for going back to school? What are we going to do before school starts? After school, snack. There's always something to think about once you have a child. So we are going to get into it today, talking about the best practices to have your best mental health when it comes to your kids, sending them off to school, and what we as parents need to know as well and focus on. That and more coming up on Kids, Chaos, and Coffee. Stay with us. This is Kids, Chaos, and Coffee. We are in the middle of back to school season, so maybe your kids are excited about being back in school or not looking forward to going back to school. But we know that mental health is incredibly important for all of us, and particularly so for our kids. We are joined now by Jaren Doby. He's with Novant, and we're talking about back to school mental health. Jaren, thanks so much for joining us here on Kids, Chaos, and Coffee. Why is it so important that we pay attention to our kids' mental health and their mental well-being?
Well, as parents, and I'm a parent as well, speaking from this perspective, it is important that we pay attention to our kids' mental health, because we always want to know what it is that's going on, right? We want to make sure that we're present as a support, right? And be able to encourage vulnerability instead of making sure that there are things that are going on in the background that could really be affecting or impacting their lives. So it's imperative to be present and to make sure that we're asking all the right questions.
You said encourage vulnerability. My daughter is in middle school. That's not always the most vulnerable time. What can parents do to encourage that with their children, to get kids to open up or to express their feelings? Because some kids just don't want to do that.
Well, I like to think of it as this, the 3 C's, right? Making sure that we connect, calm, and coach. right? When it comes down to connection, really taking an opportunity to make sure that we're having those conversations, being present, uninterrupted parents and children. No phones, no TVs, no side conversations. During these conversations, really be present and connect. And of course, calm. Our children take their cues from us, right? So if you come in on fire, then they're going to catch fire. So I want parents to remember that as well. So a calmer approach is always the best. And when it comes down to coaching, remember, parents, I know we all want to problem solve and just solve the problem, but we want to encourage, right, our children to be able to come up with solutions as well and being able to connect and help there also. So those three things, those three C's to remember, you all, are just a great way in order to be able to approach this.
When do you think a parent should consider seeing a mental health professional for their child? When is something you're like, okay, something's off, but I'm not sure, maybe they're just having a bad day or a bad moment? When is it the next level and you should consider seeing someone professionally?
That is a great question that I get all the time, JD. When is it time to be able to do something different? It's time to do something different when the things that it is that you've naturally done to be able to cope and feel better and to get through things in life that work best for you are starting to impact your life in a negative way, right? So when it comes down to children and back to school, right, and their mental health, they're missing school, right? They're calling you every day to come and pick them up. They're just outright refusing to be able to attend whatsoever, right? Experiencing changes in sleep patterns or heavy appetite issues and things of that nature, or just overall changes in their behaviors, like acting out behaviors. These things are important to pay attention to also. Yes.
Let's talk about anxiety, because we all, to some degree, whether we will admit it or not, experience anxiety. Maybe it's the anxiety of going back to school, right? It's maybe a new school or a new grade. My friends aren't in my class. I don't know if I'll fit in. What are some things we can do to sort of ease that anxious feeling?
Right. Well, the first thing that we can do is be able to recognize that anxiety is not the enemy. Look, being able to go back to school and experience these changes is something that is more normal than it is not. So to be able to normalize those feelings is something that could really be most helpful in the beginning of it all, right? Because anxiety, I like to think of it as our children's emotional smoke alarm, right? As parents, it's not our job to be able to just smother out the fire. It's to be able to find out what it is that is setting that off. Right? What's the anticipation? Are you anticipating going to a new grade? Are you anticipating being able to make sure that you do new things? Or is there something more serious that's going on? And that's an important subject to speak on as well.
We spoke with someone a few weeks ago, and it was really an eye-opening moment for me, is that parents should not just assume what worked before, maybe in their generation, will work for their kids. What is your advice to parents who are like, well, I remember when I was in third grade or when I was in middle school or high school and I did this, I didn't worry about friends or things, but this is a different time for the kids who are in school.
Absolutely. As a parent, I hear my mother and my father's voice in my head all the time when these situations come up with my own daughter. But yes, we do have to understand, right, that everybody, including our own children, are individuals with their own experiences. So it's not about doing what it is that works best for you. It's about being able to pay attention, but also ask questions, parents. It's okay to be able to talk to your children and ask questions to figure out what it is that does work best for them. That is important.
So we talk about what we think might be, when it may be time to see someone professionally if you are having negative feelings. You're sad, you're depressed, you're down, you're not being vulnerable, not connecting with people. How does one know when the child or even the parent has good mental health, right? That, you know, is it always because things are great and going well? That doesn't necessarily mean mental health is always good.
Absolutely. We have to remember this. When it comes down to mental health, there are good things that will happen in your life and there are unfavorable things that are happening in your life. We cannot avoid the wave, as I like to call it, the highs and the natural lows of life. You just become a better surfer, as I like to think about it, right? Overall. So when these things begin to impact us in ways as to where, you know what, we're kind of like falling through in some of these areas that we naturally are able to pick up and actually push through, because being able to build resilience and being able to build endurance in different areas of our lives, those are things that make us physically, emotionally, mentally stronger. So we have to be mindful of that too.
What can parents do to help their children be able to manage their emotions, to express their feelings, and to be able to connect and solve problems?
Well, it has to start at home. We're setting the stage there, We cannot forget that. So if you're used to having cell phones at the dinner table and not really having conversations about matters of the heart or matters of the head, then that's something that is going to be natural, right? So we have to be able to recognize where it is that we are and the habits that we're creating in our households, and be able to incorporate more of those open conversations of support and vulnerability. It starts at the house, so we cannot forget that.
Okay, I hear you telling me to put the phone away at dinner. Message received. We are speaking with Jaren Doby, again from Novant, the importance of mental health and mental health awareness as our kids are heading back to school. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on.
No, thank you for always having me.
This is Kids, Chaos, and Coffee. Okay, so we just heard about things that we can do if we're talking about helping our kids and managing mental health when it comes to going back to school. But now let's focus on the parents, because if we're honest, we know that sometimes we too have those jitters, we have some concerns, because you are leaving your child at school with other adults who you may or may not know very well for a significant amount of time. Joining us now is Lisa Drew. She is the Education Director for NAMI Charlotte. Lisa, welcome to Kids, Chaos, and Coffee. So great to have you on.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it.
Of course. So what do parents need to know? Because there is some anxiety that comes with, all right, I've had my kids home for the summer, or maybe they were away, but they were with people who I know. Now it's a new school year. Maybe it's even a new school. I'm leaving them with people who I don't know very well, who of course have the responsibility of taking care of them, but there's still some level of concern that comes with that. What do parents need to know?
Yeah, I think that first and foremost, they need to know that that is completely normal, right? We are all going to have some level of anxiety, as you said. As we are sending our kids off, and sometimes it's for the first time for multiple hours in the day, we want to know that our kids are cared for and that our kids are seen. I think a lot of parents are concerned that their kids, they're worried that their kids may or may not adjust well in the day, especially if they're, just starting elementary school or just starting in middle school or just starting a new high school, right? These are all very normal concerns. I think that what they need to know are there's lots of resources out there. At NAMI Charlotte, we have many resources for parents, for caregivers, but also to reach out to one another, right? Parenting is not something that we're meant to do alone. And so when we are struggling, when we are concerned, when we are anxious about something, to reach out and talk to somebody, talk to a peer, a friend, a neighbor, a spouse, or a place like NAMI Charlotte, where we have programs like the Navigator, where we could make a phone call and talk to somebody about our concerns and get support if needed. We also have support groups and things like that. So I would say check in with one another. Reach out if you are concerned about something specific. But also, I think that that action combats anxiety often. And so when we do something, when we reach out to the teachers and ask a specific question or ask a question of the administration, it helps, right? It helps to ease some of that anxiety.
Action combats anxiety. I'm going to have to write that down so I can remember that to keep myself moving forward, because you say it's important to reach out, and I agree with you. It certainly takes a village when you are raising children. But when you think about connecting with the teachers, there has to be a level of trust, right, that we have to remind ourselves of. We are sending them to a place where they need to be.
Yes. Absolutely, and sometimes that trust is hard-earned, right? We don't automatically necessarily trust a stranger taking our kids' well-being under their wing, but we know that teachers are there because they care, right? They are doing this job because they love kids. They want to educate, and so Again, I think asking questions, asking specific questions helps build that trust, because we want to know that our kids are well cared for. And so reaching out to the administration or reaching out to and talking with the teacher specifically, knowing you are a parent who wants to know what is happening in the classroom or wants to know how your kid is adjusting, I think that's a fair question.
So that's certainly fair, but I also think in 2026, many parents want their kids to learn, they want them to be well taken care of. They're also concerned about safety. So that can be a big issue for a number of parents to worry about.
Absolutely. I think there's lots of concerns around safety. And again, if there are, back to school evenings or seminars or things that the administration is offering our parents, it's helpful to be part of that because that gives us a forum to ask questions about that safety, about what is happening, what they have in place, because many of the teachers are trained, they have conversations, they go to conferences, things like that help with the safety of our kids. Again, I want to normalize this kind of conversation, these worries and anxiety, completely normal. And we are not doing this alone.
And so, Lisa, we call this show Kids, Chaos, and Coffee because, if you're raising kids, it can be chaotic at times because, especially for working mothers, you are juggling a lot. I mean, just even getting ready for this show, I had so many things. Okay, what do I do? Stay focused, Lisa. What do you say to those moms and to those parents who feel like, the mental load is very heavy because they are juggling a lot?
Yes. Parenting is not easy, right? And anyone who tells us differently is not telling the complete truth. Parenting is really difficult. We are trying to juggle a lot. I don't think it's fair for us to think that we can be everything to everyone. We often, as parents, tend to put our own mental health on the back burner. We tend to put it aside because we are trying to manage kids and routine and food and meals, all of those things, right? We tend to not care for ourselves as well as we should. And so that would be, I think, one of my big pieces is that we need to make sure that we are offering ourselves self-care and peace as best as we can when we can find it. Again, parenting takes a village sometimes. Reach out to your tribe, your crew, your people, because it helps. It's almost impossible to do by yourself.
I agree with you with that for sure. So you're saying put your mask on first. You have to have self-care.
Yes, absolutely.
Know your resources, reach out, and action combats anxiety. Any other tips or advice for parents who are listening?
Give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. Because parenting, especially now with all of the things, you mentioned school safety, social media, all of those things, it is, we're in uncharted territory much of the time. And so allow yourself grace, reach out, use your resources as best as you can to help care for yourself and your children.
Because it takes a village for sure. This is Lisa Drew, the Education Director at NAMI Charlotte. Lisa, thanks so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
And thanks so much for listening to Kids, Chaos, and Coffee. Hopefully you have heard something that will help you be able to breathe a little bit and let it go because we are all in this together. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope that you continue to tune in and we'll be back next week.